Hi, Paul from Contemporary Synth here. In these videos, we look at the technical and artistic capabilities of the Roland Fantom O workstation. Last time, I showed you how I connected my guitar and used some effects there. Today, I was looking at some scenes that come with the keyboard and trying to find some inspiration and some ideas and learn more about the keyboard by poking through those. We're all familiar with Homecoming because that's where we default to playing. But interestingly also, and hopefully you know this already, but if you go to the System menu, you can set what scene comes up when you start the keyboard. I am looking at Homecoming now. That's not the one I was going to play with. The one I'm going to play with today is A006, Hop On Over. What I'm going to do is do the build for my song in this video, but I'm going to put the song itself in a separate video. I'm going to make a rap today, and I know there's some folks who aren't going to be as interested in that. So if you aren't sure, go listen to the song first and then come back and see if the build interests you. And I think some folks are wanting the song, some people want to see the build, and we'll see. Maybe there are a few who want both. The scene is really interesting. It has only 3 tones in it, but they're pretty inspirational. And all of these scenes are special because they're curated by artists who are picking these tones for a reason, and a lot of it is stuff that I would not have come up with. So they're all really interesting to flip through. First thing you'll notice is that the keyboard is split into 3 zones, and the lowest zone is a TR-808. And I've talked about it in another video. The TR-808 has a fantastic history, and if you aren't familiar with it, go read about it on Wikipedia. But briefly, it was released in the early 80s, and it was the first ever, or at least one of the first ever, drum machines that generated the sounds using circuitry instead of sampling. And because it didn't sound like real drums, it was a commercial failure. It wasn't until years later when the hip-hop R&B community started using it in their music that it took off, and now it's kind of the foundation of that entire music scene. So it has become a part of music history, even though it wasn't popular when it was first released. So it's interesting that they would pick that one to be in here. The middle is a synth bass, which has a really kind of a powerful strike and then a low bass, very low bass tone, which is pretty cool. And then in the middle is the square edge synth with a bit of portamento. And portamento is when it glides to a note. You can adjust the time here. 20 is kind of cool, and I'll stick with that. Easier said than done. Here's another good way to do it. Come off and come back in. So I thought I'd make a song using those tones and then adding some others and build kind of a hip-hop feel and see what I could do. The first thing you need to do is get it out of A006. So I'm going to write it to a scene that is empty. And I do not want to write it to this. I'm going to go down to the D area where I have kind of a playground. And I have an initial scene here. Hit OK. And now here I am in D016. And if I look at the zones, they're exactly the same. So no surprise there. It has the keyboard split. I do not need the keyboard split for what I'm going to do. I'm going to turn that off. It has all 3 zones selected to sound, and I'm just going to start with the rhythm. I'm going to spend most of my time here in the pattern view, and I'm going to build out 10 different patterns and 5 different, or 10 different tracks and 5 different patterns. So it's nice, it's handy to be able to see them all. And I'm going to start with the rhythm with this cool TR-808. My tempo is going to be 82 because that's about as fast as I can talk. And I'm going to have to use the quantization today because that bass has a really powerful hit. And if you don't get that and the kick drum exactly lined up, it sounds like flams and it sounds awful. So I'm going to have to, after all this time complaining about quantization, I'm going to have to figure it out and get it right today or the song isn't going to work. All right, let's try it and see if I can make it work. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, the next step is to copy that down all the way through E because that's how many, patterns I'm going to use. And I can do that here, copy, and then I'm going to paste it 4 times. Paste, exit out of the confirmation because that confirmation window goes for a long time. 3, 4. I'm going to use these different A through E for different parts of my verse, and then my hook, and then my end. All right, that's it for the rhythm. Now let's look at the bass. All right, I have a part written up for that. 2, 3, 4. And let's copy that also. Copy, exit, paste 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. Finally, the synth. Now that's only going to go in pattern D and E because that's my kind of my hook refrain, and then E is going to be my ending track. 2, 3, 4. Good. Pattern utility, copy, exit, paste, exit. Now I could be done because those are the only tones it gives you for this. But when I was working on the song, I just kept coming up with more and more things I wanted to add. So the next thing I want to add are some ornaments up here. So that's going to be in the pad section. Poly key, page 3, and I'll dream. See, that's a lot more fun than just a regular keyboard or regular pad. Now, in this case, I have to turn the quantizing off because it's kind of triplets, and it's not triplets on the downbeat. So ordinarily with triplets, you could put it into 1/24th, which is 1/8 times 1/3. But I've tried that, and it still quantizes it into the wrong spot. 2, 3, 4. All right, pattern utility, copy, exit, paste 3 times. 1, 2, 3. 5 and 6, I'm going to play live, so I don't have to put patterns on those. 7 is a bass because that bit bass is boomy, but you can't hear it once it strikes. So I wanted to create another bass that I could hear. So I went to this 101 bass. It doesn't have the same boom on the downbeat, but it has a little more bass sustained. Oh, but instead of recording it, since I'm using this pattern utility already, let's use the pattern utility, copy from track 1, and paste it in track 7. Now, that worked, except now listen to it. So the bit bass plays up here, but the 101 bass plays down here, so I have to transpose it down an octave. There are 2 ways you can do that. You can go into the edit and shrink everything down, and then hold down Shift, highlight it, and then move and drag it. We've done that before. But there's an easier way. If you go to the pattern utility again, I can go modify, and there's transpose. I missed. Transpose. And then your bias, which should say transpose amount, but is -12 because there are 12 half steps in an octave. This range is interesting because you can filter out how much gets transposed, and I could see using that for an instrument if you've put in a part and the couple of high notes are too high and you want to move just those notes down an octave. That'd be kind of cool. This loop and pattern selects the whole pattern as you would expect. Loop, and I'll show you when we get to loop settings, you can pick just a couple of measures and only transpose those measures. Because it defaults to the loop is the whole pattern, those do the same for me right now, and I'm fine with that. So now if I play it, it's in the right measure. So it's in the right octave. Copy, and I'm going to paste that down too. And then paste 3 times. 1, 2, 3. When I was experimenting with that bass, I realized I'm going to pick it again, and I'll show you why. Bass, synth, page 3, 101. Here is where we wanted it. This is where it started. But up here, gives you really pizzicato bass, which I really like. And I think there are a lot of hip hop songs where it has these long tones, but then it puts this staccato thing up at the top, which gives it some texture. So I was going to do that here. And let's see, it's just going to be one measure. Oh, except you know what? I want to turn the quantizing back on and get that 16th note lock in. 3, 4. And let's copy, X, paste, paste, paste. And I actually think I don't want it to come in here. I think I want it to come in the next one. So let's just delete that one. Okay. Back to this mode. Now, number 9 is going to be some another bass I found when I was looking for something to augment that low bass. And this one is going to surprise you. Sine bend down bass. How cool is that? We tried that in an earlier one using the LFO. This is a much easier way to do it. What I'm going to do here is hit it hard the first time, soft the second two, and then hard the last time. What that does is all of these tones are very sharp and locked in tempo-wise. So this gives you something that crosses the tempo and again adds more texture. Bring utility, copy, exit, paste, exit, paste, exit, paste, exit. Now something else I'm going to do just this time is I talked about that loop setting menu. I only want it to play I really just want it to play one falling tone and then not play the rest until it gets later into the song. Here you can pick which parts of your pattern repeat. And then by turning this on or off, you can make it repeat or not. We did this last time. Now what you can't do is play measure 1 and then skip 2, 3, and 4. It has to be contiguous. But what I can do is set it to play measure 4 and then 3 empty measures. So I will do that, and I'll leave this on so that it repeats every 4 measures. Exit. So that way in pattern B, it's a little different, and then in that pattern C, it's going to pick up some more. Last thing I'm going to put here are just some long chords. It's kind of like a pad. Oh, that's funny. Pattern 10 defaults to drums. That's why that's there. So instead of a pad, I was just experimenting around, and this is what I'm sure we all do this, look around for some tone we haven't found before, and here is Next Frontier. I like that swell, but down here, it adds in some kind of, sounds like a fourth that it's adding in, which is cool. It sounds like some of those adventure games on the computer when you walk into a new room. I've unlocked something. So let's do that. 2, 3, 4. Some of these levels fixed. And let's see. Oh, I'm going to copy this down. I didn't want that in the highest one, so I'll end up deleting it again. That's all right. Okay, and that is it for the sounds. Now you notice D and E are identical. And what I'm going to do here is make E not loop. And what that does for me is I'm going to play that last, and that's how I'll end my song. And you can see when you turn off the loop, you get an icon in the box. So you can tell by a glance that that pattern is only going to play once. What's interesting is the song keeps going, so you'll see the measure counter keep going. And you could launch another pattern on top and it would come in on the downbeat. Next question is, how am I going to control all of these patterns? And there are a couple ways to do it. If you go to pad mode, there is a pattern mode here, and that allows you to select exactly which ones you want. There's no way I'd be able to do this live with that many patterns. You could hold down Shift in pad mode and move that box around, but that still isn't going to work for me in this setting. What I found was variation is a little better, and this is A, B, C, D, and E. So I can do this, launch the first one, I can do this to launch the last one, which I'm going to do now and adjust some of these levels. Like that 9 diving tune's too loud. And this was the... See how I only played once? I still didn't get my levels where I wanted. Okay, channel 5 is what I'm going to play. I don't want a piano, I want an electric piano, and I found one that I liked, of course. It's this guy. What's interesting, though, what I liked about it was that synthy wavy sound, but that was all, if I go to the effects, that was all because of this hexachorus. This is default, and if I turn that off, it sounds like an electric piano. But as much as I do like the hexachorus, I'm going to put something else in there, and you'll notice this is the same list of effects that we get in every menu. I'm going to go to the 2-tap pan delay because that's worked for me in the past. I'm going to set it, synchronize it with the metronome. I'm going to back some of these pans down so that it doesn't give you a headache if you're listening in headphones. And I'm going to turn this balance up a bit. Again, the balance, dry and wet, that's just what percentage of the original signal and what percentage of the delay signal you get. And that's cool because I'm going to start without the drums and I can feel the beat. And 6 is just going to be a pad. And that's only going to come in the last couple of measures, so that's just going to be a shine pad. I'm going to select zone 5 and then unselect the button and activate 5 so I can bring 6 in along with it later. And I'm going to start the whole thing with the switch. So hold down Shift and press S2. I could do that with either buttons. I could do it with the control pedal. And I go to Start Stop, which is number 113 down here. Remember to set this to latch, or you're going to have a very short song, just as long as you're holding the button. And let's see. So if I hold that, I'm going to go. Okay, I'm going to start with up here. All right, I'm ready to play the song, which I'm going to put in the other video. I'll put the link right here. I hope you click it and see where all this is headed. I'll see you over there.